guys. Okay, so I realized something as I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick up my reading from wherever I left off last week, and I was like looking on the YouTube channel. I'm like, okay, what where did I like end up on? And I realized that for some reason, when I converted my video, it didn't save any of the audio. So it's like been up for like the last week, and you can't hear me saying anything. So I'm back here today, and I'm gonna re-upload that one, and I'm also gonna keep going from where I left off. Today I'm going to be continuing on with the reading of The Awakened Mind, Biofeedback, and the Development of Higher States of Awareness. And guys, feel free if you want to comment in the comment section throughout this reading. I'll do my best to answer any questions you have. Comment. If you guys would like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I would really appreciate that. You'll see in the description it's at Kumquat Kelly. So if you want to subscribe to me, I have vlogs and I have readings, and otherwise feel free to just comment whenever you'd like. We have Trump 2020 is sending me a flower. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so I'm going to keep jumping in. Feel free to comment. All right, so the mind mirror. Our ability to think and to perceive, even our power to respond to stimuli with anything beyond a mere reflex, is due to the brain cortex. But the cortex cannot function unless it is in an aroused state, or awake. The brain cortex cannot wake itself up. What awakens the cortex from sleep and keeps it awake is the RAS. Consciousness is impossible if the RAS is destroyed or severely damaged. Trump 2020 says, hey, Trump 2020. All right, the RAS has much wider powers than just determining levels of wakefulness. It monitors and regulates all our muscular activity and all our sensory perceptions. Stimulating certain areas of the RAS with an electrical current causes all our muscular efforts to be exaggerated, as well as our sensory perceptions, just as if the stimuli themselves had become stronger. Stimulating other areas of the RAS causes our muscular efforts to become weaker, and our sensory perceptions too. It is believed that the cortex and the reticular system operate in a feedback mode, the purpose of which is to maintain an optimum level of stimulation. Oh, thanks, Trump 2020. I appreciate that. All right. Sensations which reach the brain cortex are fed back to the RAS, and when the level of activity becomes too high, the RAS sends inhibitory signals to the cortex to reduce the excitation. On the other hand, in a sensory deprivation situation where the level of stimulation reaching the RAS via the cortex is too low, the RAS must send stimulating signals to the cortex to maintain alertness. It is probable that anxiety states are due to a failure of the inhibitory function of the RAS to keep cortical activity within safe limits. It was the distinguished French psychologist M. Jouvet who first showed that it is the anterior part of the RAS which switches on the cortex during sleep to produce vivid dreams. He also showed that the posterior part of the RAS is responsible during dreaming sleep for inhibiting the activity of the whole spinal cord, so that the dreaming animal does not go sleepwalking and possibly endanger itself. Most important of all, for the purpose of this book, is that the functions of the RAS provide the gateway to all forms of meditation, creative reverie, and higher states of consciousness. It is cooperative action between the RAS and the cortex which makes it possible for us to achieve all the remarkable feats of self-regulation demonstrated by practitioners of biofeedback and yoga. Or to look at it another way, it is the function of biofeedback and yoga to facilitate this cooperation. Oh, hi guys, thanks for joining. If you're just joining right now, I'm reading The Awakened Mind, Biofeedback and the Development of Higher States of Awareness. The top part of the brainstem contains the RAS, which then merges into the part of the brain termed the limbic system. The main part of the limbic system is the U-shaped hippocampus, which processes incoming information from short-term to long-term memory and is vital to learning. At the ends of the hippocampus is the amygdala, and above is the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus and amygdala between them can generate sex drives, hunger, thirst, rage, and euphoria. The limbic system seems to be responsible for many of the strange phenomena of altered states of consciousness, states of euphoria, feelings of divided consciousness, or witnessing oneself, loss of awareness of body boundaries, feelings of floating or flying, and strange visual experiences such as sensations of white or golden light. The RAS and the limbic system work together closely. The hypothalamus is responsible for two highly integrated responses, the fight or flight, sympathetic response, and the relaxation, parasympathetic response. As we have discussed elsewhere, page 7, the fight or flight response is accompanied by a decrease in skin resistance, while the relaxation response is accompanied by an increase. The peculiar subjective correlates of states of arousal are due to the limbic system effects mentioned above. To return to our discussion of the machines, the main value of the thermistor probe is to provide an immediate feedback of the degree of control one has over one's superficial blood flow, and to see instantly when one is successful or unsuccessful, and to learn eventually how to control skin temperature in a half hour or so without the aid of instruments. The end result is self-control learned in a very short space of time, with the added bonus of deepened conviction of the potential of the control itself. Apart from sufferers of Raynaud's disease, or insufficient circulation to the extremities, which may terminate in gangrene and the amputation of fingers and toes, thousands of people endure the misery of cold hands and feet. In training subjects by biofeedback to achieve a normal, healthy circulation, it is first necessary to break down their barrier of disbelief by proving that such control is possible. A sensitive electrical thermocouple is taped to the subject's finger, and he or she is directed as follows. Will your finger to get hot, with all the force you can summon up. In less than a minute, the finger will be seen to have become remarkably colder. The forceful use of the will invokes the basic human fight or flight survival response and results in the diversion of blood from the skin into the muscles in preparation for violent action. Oh, that is so weird. What? Okay, I want to try that. To make the fingers warmer, they must be visualized as being in a warm situation, doing the washing up, being near the fire, and so on. Temperature control has a direct relation to the phenomenon called tumo, which is the yogi's term for the power to regulate bodily heat voluntarily. In Tibet, lamas have been photographed standing in the snow for up to 24 hours as an act of worship or endurance. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, this reminds me a lot of kind of like the Wim Hof method, and he's very easily found on YouTube, but basically he's like this daredevil guy who uses like a breathing technique to withstand crazy temperatures. And he's actually been like hooked up to like scientific equipment, and they've been able to see like, yes, he can fully control his body temperature. He can teach people to do the same thing, and he actually can lower his own inflammation levels. It's incredible. If you're interested in this, look up Wim Hof and the E. coli study. Basically, the people he taught to do his breathing technique like weren't affected by the normal symptoms of E. coli in a like clinical trial. Crazy. So crazy. Okay, next page. Here is a method of self-training in temperature or blood flow control. Take the temperature probe between the thumb and forefinger, or tape it to the surface of a finger, holding the extreme tip. Do not press too hard. Switch on the instrument. When you have a reading, try to increase hand temperature by imagining the hand in a hot situation. If the meter reading is above 35.5 degrees Celsius, begin by imagining the hand in a cold situation in order to reduce the reading. A change of 2 degrees should easily be obtained at the first attempt. After you have successfully shown increases and decreases of the temperature in both hands, place the probe in the center of the forehead and imagining a cold pad on the forehead, reduce temperature 2 degrees. Successful training in increase of hand temperature and decrease in forehead temperature will often result in the control of migraine headaches. Oh. The electromyograph, or EMG, is a device which registers and detects the voltages associated with muscle tension. Guys, if you're just joining right now, I am reading The Awakened Mind, Biofeedback and the Development of Higher States of Awareness. If you guys have any comments or questions, just put them in the comments. I'll reply. All right. 2 electrodes are placed directly on each side of the muscle to be measured, and the tension voltage is fed back in microvolts, millionths of a volt, as shown by the needle or pointer on the voltage panel, or in a high-pitched sound or click, either by loudspeaker or through an earpiece worn by the user. As a general tool for relaxation training, the EMG is of considerable importance in the development of self-awareness. Early emotional conflicts are often reflected in the body armor a person has built permanently tense muscles intended as body defense. The electromyograph facilitates specific therapy for these states, and the ability to exercise fine control over muscular tension may be one of the best indicators of the subject's ability to relax at will, which is the gateway to meditation as well as to improved general health. A muscle intention or action can be recognized by the electrical activity accompanying the firing of the motor neurons. Muscles are normally slightly tense in order to hold the body in shape and to facilitate quick responses, but should not be so tense that they are painful. If tension is present, feedback from the electromyograph helps the subject recognize it and make an effort to reduce it with deep relaxation. Sometimes this requires only the unlearning of a bad habit of tension, such as an almost permanently raised shoulder, or a frown, or a rigid neck. Sometimes it is just the recognition of what mental state causes the meter to register tension that pinpoints it and leads to its elimination. EMG feedback can also dramatically eliminate the habit of subvocalization, talking to oneself under one's breath, which limits reading speed. By means of the myograph, placing electrodes on each side of the Adam's apple, subjects or students can become aware of the habit, and in a matter of 2 or 3 hours of training can greatly increase their reading speed. The range of uses for EMG feedback is wide. Subjects with severe facial tics have been helped, as have those suffering from insomnia, when they are taught to relax by a frontalis, forehead muscle feedback. The same method may be used in the treatment of tension headaches, because relaxation of the frontalis muscles is usually accompanied by relaxation of the neck and scalp muscles, which, when tense, produce the headaches in the first place. Anxiety symptoms are also relieved by the combination of EMG feedback and deep muscular relaxation. In fact, it is seldom that anxiety can exist in such a state of relaxation. The electrical skin resistance meter, or ESR, consists of a pair of electrodes typically about 5 centimeters square attached to the palm of each hand, a battery, and a voltage meter that measures resistance of the skin to the passage of the current. Skin resistance is a mirror for all our mental and bodily states, both normal and pathological, and it can tell us very much more about ourselves than just our state of relaxation or arousal, which is why we speak of skin talk or the chatterbox organ. In the lab or classroom situation, the skin resistance is read at the commencement of the training session when subjects are in a waking state, and during the test or class readings are taken to compare and determine the percentage difference. As the student relaxes using the various techniques shown by the instructor, the resistance increases, and the greater the relaxation, the greater the percentage of resistance change. The device measures the number of ohms, the unit of electrical resistance, per square centimeter. Some examples are, arousal refers to the intensity dimension of behavior. A drowsy, inactive subject is low in arousal, while the arousal of an alert, active subject is high. What the ESR is monitoring is the state of arousal of the subject, or the degree of activity in the sympathetic nervous system. This degree of activity varies with every response, from moods such as depression, anxiety, and excitement, to the intake of food and drink, drugs or smoking, the feeling of fatigue, and particularly to the time of day, since arousal usually climbs through the day and declines progressively through the night. We have established also that a single ESR reading gives an immediate idea of what a person's hypnotic susceptibility might be, as well as detecting the possible onset of a physical indisposition. A subject with a mentally or physically lowered state of arousal will register a much higher ESR than his norm, and conversely, a higher anxious or excited subject will register a much lower ESR than his norm. No value can be absolute for an individual because he will register different values at each test according to the arousal of the moment. Nevertheless, it is possible to assign to an individual a characteristic resistance value for a given time of day, which in the absence of mental disturbance or physical illness remains more or less constant over relatively long intervals of time, months or years. Instructions we give to new students might be as follows. Hold on guys, water break. Plug in the electrode jack and attach the electrodes to the palm of the hand so that they are sitting flat, and the elastic band is reasonably tight, but not uncomfortable. The electrodes are normally worn on the dominant hand, and in order to avoid physical movements, rest the back of the hand on the thigh or table in front of you, so that the hand and lower arms are relaxed and still. Press the black button on the omega-1 ESR meter. This disconnects the right hand control and causes the meter to indicate basal skin resistance on the bottom scale. This scale is calibrated in ohms from 10K at the right hand of the scale, to 2M on the left end. Typical readings when a subject is not exhausted, over anxious, very cold, or apathetic lie between the 100K and 300K indications on the scale. Note that these readings are multiplied by 5 to give the value per square centimeter because our electrodes have an area of 5 square centimeters. Waiting for a few minutes for the reading to stabilize, and note that if there are large fluctuations, the subject may well be apprehensive of the meter, especially if it is the first experience. Note, the meter is not measuring the wetness of the skin. It is possible to have a damp hand and high skin resistance. Set the pointer to mid-scale 25 microamps, relax, and wait for the instructor to begin the guided imagery. Students often watch their pointers jump way up when they first sit down and may get discouraged at their apparent lack of control. They feel revealed because until that pointer shows the fact of arousal, they may be able to hold to a facade of calmness or poise. The pointer tells the truth too, about a depressed state or the recent ingestion of drugs and alcohol. Sometimes on a very cold night, the ESR reading will remain extremely high until the student warms up. Eventually, however, by the time the instructor starts, the pointer will have settled in the middle. From that point, as the guided imagery begins and the student follows it visually, inwardly with eyes closed, and being as relaxed as possible, the pointer should slowly swing toward a high reading. A reading that gets reliably, predictably higher as the students learn how to feel in order to direct it there. This visual evidence that he has direct authority, that pointer is the beginning of the student's full realization that mind control or mind-body unification can actually be achieved, that it is not just a theory, but a demonstrable fact. So what I've learned so far from this reading is I've heard about visualization before, about how we can visualize our reality, we can manifest stuff. Like if you read like The Secret or The Law of Attraction, they recommend you close your eyes and visualize what you want and see it in your third eye, and that kind of thing. Apparently here, at least when it comes to the physiology of our own body, apparently this test does show that we do have some control over at least the heat of our body. And even when you look at the Wim Hof studies, you can see that now he's using a breathing method. He's not just using his mind, but you can see how he's able to control his own body's temperature and also with his inflammation levels. And in fact, there was actually a Wim Hof trial where they did ask him, the scientists or students, whatever, at the University of Michigan, they asked him to not do any breathing and just see if he could get into the meditative state in which the breathing would normally get him to. And and because he had been doing this for years, he was able to do that right on cue. And they found that they would get the same readings from him when they were testing him as they did when he was doing the breathing, which is very interesting. That our mind has so much control over our own physical body. Now, I haven't seen enough like clinical trials or read any like reports or studies that show that like when we, have our, intentions set for something outside of our body that we can like attract it. I've read a lot of like theoretical things or people that are like, I believe this, but they don't really tell you why they believe it, and they might be like, oh, well, this is what showed up in my life because I did this. But I don't know that there's really been any scientific evidence for it yet. I would love to see it. I would love to read it if someone has seen it and would comment about it. But yeah, I mean, I think there is something to be thought about. If we do have a mindset, or we have mental control to be able to produce something within our own body, that normally people would think, oh, that's like a subconscious thing. We can't control, the heat. That's like that's based on our surroundings. We don't have any control over that. It does make me think, if you look into like Bruce Lipton's work, he talks about how the subconscious, has to do with like our energy. It has to do with like certain things that people pick up on, and that is trained over time due to habitual learning, due to like the formative years, like from being in the womb to like the first 6 years of our life. That basically writes most of those subconscious things, unless we actively try to change it later on in life through repetition. And basically, he says that subconscious can lead to more things like beyond our consciousness. Like people subconsciously pick up on our energies. So I think it is possible that if we do have positive energies going toward a certain outcome that's outside of our, body, it is possible that our subconscious is energetically sending those forces out when we enter into a space, whether it be a job interview or something along those lines. I think that's possible. So that's kind of what I've taken from it. This book was recommended to me by the last book I read, which was Psych K. And I have to say, so far, this book has not been like terribly interesting. It's been really wordy, really scientific. And that's fine. There's a place for that. But like, I enjoyed like The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, and I didn't record it simultaneously to YouTube so I could like, upload it later. So that's kind of gone in the wind. But like those books, you kind of have like the writer's personality coming out on it, along with the scientific evidence. This just seems like a really dry scientific book. So I'm going to try to like, I don't know, I'm going to read what's on the page. I'm going to try to like, pop in here and there with a little bit of commentary if I can, just because this is a rough one to get through. Guys, if you have questions, please put them in the comments below. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'd really appreciate that. It's in the title. It's Kumquat Kelly, or it's on my title page, my profile page here on Bigo. Really appreciate that. I am trying to get more subscribers there. And so I'll put like vlogs, and I'll put these recordings after they've been streamed live up there as well. So there you go. I'm going to just dive right back in. Okay. This visual evidence that he has direct authority over that pointer is the beginning of the student's full realization that mind control or mind-body unification can actually be achieved, that it is not just a theory, but a demonstrable fact. We ask students to wear their arousal monitoring skin resistance electrodes all the time they are in class, and to experiment with their states of arousal as much as possible by taking deep breaths, tightening muscles, relaxing, daydreaming, and so on, all of which instantly affect the reading. So that if it goes high, it must be brought down again to the middle and vice versa. We emphasize that they cannot control that of which they are unaware. The more they can be aware of what they think or do or feel that affects their pointer, the sooner they will begin to have control over their inner states. That is so interesting, because that feels like a very conscious mind area that's causing this to do that. And it seems like when you aren't aware, you're letting the subconscious take over. That's very interesting. Okay. Use of the arousal meters is the most sensitive and accurate method known to science for showing the changes in states of arousal. We also point out that students should not confuse these meters with galvanic skin response, or GSR meters, used in many laboratories to register sudden emotional changes such as shock. They are quite different because the dynamic range of the GSR is totally inadequate for monitoring altered states of consciousness. State of arousal varies enormously, on the meter as much as 10,000 to 1, between full general anesthesia and panic states. Our everyday arousal varies from about 100 to 1 between sleep and vigorous exercise. Individuals vary greatly in their ordinary levels of arousal. Some are more relaxed when wide awake than others are in deep sleep. Meters are therefore calibrated both in absolute terms and in percentage change of skin resistance, so that they may be more versatile in use. Most students after the first few weeks of practice show a normal level of arousal, which varies less than 5% from day to day at the same time of day. Hypertense, uncontrolled individuals may show instability of 0 for 6 or more weeks before the training becomes fully effective in stabilizing their normal. This objective evidence of students or subjects' progress is extremely important to the gradual climb to higher states, which the Eastern meditators have experienced for thousands of years. The principal reason we have not yet got their incredible control is that we are not self-aware to the extent that they are. Biofeedback training and monitoring gives us that awareness. In fact, a yogi, Swami Rama, who demonstrated an extraordinary range of control over his brainwave and other bodily states for Dr. Elmer Green and at the Menninger Clinic in Topeka, Kansas, said that when he returned to India, he would shorten the training of novice monks by starting them off with biofeedback instruments. Many years could be saved that way, he observed. Oh, that's so funny. The electroencephalograph, or EEG, is an electronic device for detecting the brain waves by means of electrodes attached to the scalp. Because the signals the electrodes pick up are very weak, the machine amplifies them and displays their strength on a meter in microvolts. The average brainwave signal reads about 10 microvolts. In order to allow us to select frequencies which are of special interest, the machine has built-in filters. The signals can be visual, the swing of a needle along the range of microvolts, or auditory, a high-pitched tone. The overall procedure is too complicated for the average beginner to effectively train himself. So for the first several sessions, a trainer-operator is used who can, for example, tell the subject, "Now you're on the right note, keep going." Although the feedback signal is usually visual or auditory, it can just as well be tactile, like the vibrator, which has been used to tell pilots when they are braking too hard and likely to skid. Even the use of a mirror when shaving or making up can be said to be an example of biofeedback. Perhaps the first human biofeedback instrument was our reflection in water, while the first scientific one, in the modern sense, was a mechanical arrangement of levers to fit on the head with a pointer suspended just in front of the eyes, patented at the end of the 19th century as a device for training people to wiggle their ears. Alright guys, I am going to end the reading right there. If you just came in, oh hi Isa, hi. Guys, if you just came in, I was reading The Awakened Mind, Biofeedback, and the Development of Higher States of Awareness. I have been simultaneously recording these streams and putting them on my YouTube channel. My YouTube name is Kumquat Kelly, and you can see that in the title or on my profile here on Bigo. Please subscribe if you haven't. I would really appreciate that. I also put vlogs there. I just put up 3 vlog videos of my road trip up and down the California coast. So that was nice. That was a nice getaway because we've been mostly quarantined here. Things are starting to pick up a little bit with what is being opened. Few stores are now being opened. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if people claim there's a second wave of, pandemic to be worried about, and things might close up again. But as of right now, things are going the right direction, which is nice to see. Anyway, so this stream is going to be up there in by tomorrow at the latest, and I'll read more next week as well. My goal is to do another reading this coming Monday, and I'm going to shoot for around 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Monday. So if you're in the vicinity on Bigo, feel free to watch that. Otherwise, yeah, that's all for now. Thanks, guys.